we started off the program with this clip of an exchange between Representative Issa and Attorney General Eric Holder talking about Fast and Furious. Tomorrow, the Senate Judiciary Committee is going to be talking to Attorney General Eric Holder, so I imagine we'll have some tape for you as well. At the start of the show, I just wanted you to hear for yourself. I didn't want to interject anything. I just wanted you to listen to what the Attorney General had to say in response to these questions. Now I'm going to Mystery Science Theater 3000, this little clip, because there are some things that I would like to say in response to what we heard from Attorney General Eric Holder. So we'll be stopping and starting this a little bit, but let's go ahead and get started once again with this exchange between Representative Darrell Issa, who is the head of the House Government Oversight and Reform Committee, and a guy who has subpoenaed documents from acting ATF Director Ken Melson, and that subpoena has been ignored. The documents have not been turned over. Let's take a listen.
Mr. Attorney General, we have 2 Border Patrol agents who are dead, who were killed by guns that were allowed, as far as we can tell, to deliberately walk out of gun shops under the program often called Fast and Furious. This program, as you know, and the President's been asked about it, you've been asked about it, allowed for weapons to be sold to straw purchasers, and ultimately many of those weapons are today in the hands of drug cartels and other criminals. When did you first know about the program, officially I believe called Fast and Furious? To the best of your knowledge, what date?
I'm not sure the exact date, but I probably heard about Fast and Furious for the first time over the last few weeks.
Now that you've been briefed on it, the President has said on March 22nd that you didn't authorize it. Did your Deputy Attorney General, James Cole, authorize it?
I'm sorry,
The Deputy Attorney General, James Cole?
Did he? I didn't hear. Did he?
Did the Deputy Attorney General authorize it?
My guess would be no. Mr. Cole, I don't think was in the. I don't think he was in the department at the time that operation started.
But he's been aware of it much longer.
Been aware of it much longer
than you have, since you've only been aware of it a few weeks. How about the head of the criminal division,
sure
Lanny Brewer? Did he authorize it?
I'm not sure whether Mr. Brewer authorized it. I mean, you have to understand the way in which the department operates. Although there are operations, this one has gotten a great deal of publicity.
Yeah, there are dead Americans as a result of this failed and reckless program. So I would say that it hasn't gotten enough attention, has it, Mr. Attorney General?
It's not necessarily. I mean, there's an investigation that is underway.
I'm aware of that investigation. Let me follow up with a couple of questions.
And we'll have to look at that to see exactly what happened with regard to.
Well, Mr. Attorney General,
let's stop here for a second, because this is the line that the Obama administration has been using on Representative Issa and on Senator Grassley since they first started requesting these documents. Well, there's an investigation underway. Yes, an internal investigation within the Department of Justice. The acting inspector general is conducting an investigation. The acting inspector general works for the Department of Justice. Representative Issa and Senator Grassley want to investigate the Department of Justice. And they are being stonewalled by the administration, claiming, well, we're doing our own investigation. We're doing our own internal investigation. Okay, let's put it this way. The Obama administration and allegedly President Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder have known about this for a few weeks. I think that's actually more like early March. They cannot yet tell us who authorized the investigation, who was aware, how high up the chain of command this went, who all was involved. Again, it's May the 3rd. It's been almost 2 months since the first news stories about Fast and Furious came out. And this internal investigation, apparently we don't have those basic answers. We don't know how many firearms were actually allowed to walk over the border. We don't know whether there were similar operations. Fast and Furious was based out of Phoenix. We suspect that there were similar operations in other states because of things like how Carter's Country gun stores in Houston were treated. They went through something very similar to what these gun stores in Phoenix went through, where the ATF would A suspicious character would come in wanting to buy a gun. Carter's Country would contact ATF, and ATF would say, "Oh yeah, let it go, let it proceed." And the staff at Carter's Country would say, we're not really comfortable with that." "Oh, no, you're helping us out. You're collaborating with us. We're going to get these guys." But there are some really basic questions that you would think 2 months into an investigation, you would be able to publicly say, here's what we've learned so far, right? We never heard a statement from Eric Holder today saying, here's what we've learned so far. What we heard was, well, we're doing our own investigation, and at some point in time, we'll give you the documents that you have subpoenaed. All right, let's keep going.
General,
I mean, I take very seriously the allegations.
Mr. Attorney General, do you take seriously,
Mr.
Attorney General, do you take seriously a subpoena signed by the Clerk of the House?
Of course.
After 14 days of waiting for a letter to be signed or acknowledged or responded to, we sent a subpoena signed by the Clerk of the House. 32 days later, last night, your people responded by giving us 92 pages representing 3 documents that were public records already. All of them were available, and saying that the other 400 or so responsive pages were not going to be produced. Do you stand by that? And were you aware of that?
I think we indicated that the other 400 pages would be made available for review. Just to be accurate, I think so. Those, in essence, were being made available as well.
And it took 32 days to get that answer.
The information was gathered as quickly as it could. I've taken steps to enhance our ability to respond to subpoenas and document requests in that regard. I was not satisfied with the pace at which these things were happening, and as I said, I've taken some steps to make sure that we are more responsive.
Mr. Attorney General, do you agree that Congress has an independent responsibility, particularly when U.S. persons have been killed because of a failed and reckless program, to investigate those who authorized, approved, knew about it, and in some other way were responsible for it?
Well, as I indicated to you last night when we spoke about this at the White House, yeah, I think that there is a legitimate oversight responsibility that Congress has, but I think also Congress has to use that oversight responsibility in a responsible way. We have cases, 20 matters that will go to trial in June of this year.
Mr. Attorney General, isn't it true that those cases that will go to trial in June, I have very limited time, I'm sorry, those cases are basically a bunch of meth addicts who did the buying, that you do not have what this program was supposed to produce. You don't have the kingpins. You don't have the places it went. What you have are the people that you already had on videotape many, many months before indictments were brought. Isn't this true?
There are cases that are important that we are trying to bring, that we want to try successfully, and they are part of a scheme. They are part of a scheme. You can't look at a case and it's as an individual matter and think it is unimportant, because small cases lead to larger ones, and that's why it is important.
I'd ask you
All
now,
right, we got a time out of here, because again, there's some backstory that the congressman and the attorney general did not get into. Project Gunrunner, which is sort of the umbrella name for the ATF operations to try to stop guns from getting into the hands of the drug cartels. This report, or this project, was criticized in an Inspector General's report, and the Inspector General's report said that, in essence, Project Gunrunner was not focusing on the big fish, that they were focusing on the cases that Representative Issa just brought up. You know, individual straw buyers, but not going after the kingpins, not going after the serpent's head, so to speak. The allegations in one of the theories about Fast and Furious is that it was developed as a response to that report from the Inspector General that was critical of the ATF strategy, which was, again, focusing on the little guys. And now Attorney General Eric Holder said, well, look, this is part of a scheme. Let's talk about that scheme. I'd love to know, what is the scheme? Was the scheme, okay, we will let these straw buys or straw purchases take place. We will let the guns then walk across into Mexico, where we will hopefully recover them, and therefore we can build a case against the Mexican drug cartel members. What was the scheme? In fact, again, I think that's kind of the big question, isn't it? What was that scheme? What was Fast and Furious? Who knew about it? When did it start? When did it stop? Well, we don't know. You got to take these cases to trial. Okay, that's in June. I'm fairly certain, by the way, that when you go to trial, you as a defendant are entitled to know the evidence against you, right? So why are we concerned about a case that's beginning next month? We can't talk about the evidence that has been assembled against these defendants. Aren't these defendants supposed to have access to this information so that their attorneys can prepare an adequate defense? But again, I guess we can't talk about it. When can we talk about it? What if the Department of Justice decides to drag out these cases for the next 2 or 3 years? Can we not talk about Fast and Furious until the prosecutions have all concluded? All right, more from Darrell Issa and Attorney General Eric Holder.
Consent for an additional 30
That's
seconds.
why these cases are important, and that is why we...
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
Mr. Attorney General, my final question, though, is from what you're saying about a scheme and so on, do you stand by this program? In other words, and it's not a hypothetical, really, if you knew this program, knew about this program 90 days ago, 180 days ago, would you have allowed it to continue? And if not, then what are you going to do about the people who did know and allowed it to continue?
Well, what I have told people at the Department of Justice is that under no circumstances, in any case that, any investigation that we bring, should guns be allowed to be distributed in an uncontrolled manner.
So that would be consistent with the March 9th letter from Deputy Attorney General James Cole, in which he said that we should not design or conduct undercover operations which include guns crossing the border. If we have knowledge that guns are about to cross the border, we must take immediate action to stop the firearms from crossing the border, and so on. That's your policy today.
That is our policy. That has certainly been the policy that I've tried to impose.
And isn't Fast and Furious inconsistent with that policy?
Well, that's one of the questions that we'll have to see, whether or not Fast and Furious was conducted in a way that's consistent with what Jim wrote there, what I have said today, and that's what the Inspector General is in fact looking at.
And will you agree to work with both this committee, of course, and the other committees investigating this as to, we're not looking at the straw buyers, Mr. Attorney General, we're looking at you, straw purchasers, we're looking at you, we're looking at your key people who knew or should have known about this, and whether or not your judgment was consistent with good practices, and whether or not instead the Justice Department is basically guilty of allowing weapons to kill Americans and Mexicans. So will you agree to cooperate with that investigation both on the House and Senate side?
We'll certainly cooperate with all the investigations, but I'm going to take great exception to what you just said. The notion that somehow or other this Justice Department is responsible for those deaths that you mentioned, that assertion is offensive. And I want to tell you that
But what if it's accurate,
it is the
Mr.
policy
Attorney
of the
General?
Justice Department to make sure that we do all that we can to protect law enforcement agents. It is one of the reasons why I have tried to look at, a whole variety of methods, techniques that we can use to protect the lives of law enforcement agents. It is something that this country is not focused enough on. Over the last 2 years, the rate at which our people in law enforcement have been killed has risen about.
So what am I going to tell Agent Terry's mother about?
Let's time out for a second here, because this is where we start to get into the defense mechanism. How dare you? How dare you accuse me of these allegations that have been broadly reported, including allegations that have been reported by ATF officials? How dare you accuse the Justice Department of this? I'm greatly offended by this. And I love Representative Issa's response. I can't think of a better one. What if it's true? You can be offended all you want, but what if it is true? And again, it's been nearly 2 months since the revelations became public. And Attorney General Eric Holder could say absolutely nothing about what that Inspector General's investigation has uncovered in those few weeks that he's known about this. Not one bit of information. All right, keep going.
To tell Agent Terry's mother about how he died at the hand of a gun that was videotaped as it was sold to a straw purchaser, fully expecting it to end up in the hands of drug cartels?
Well, you know, one will have to see exactly what happened with regard to the guns that are at issue there. And I've attended funerals, you know. This is something that, this isn't theoretical, this is not political, this is extremely real for me as Attorney General. I've
It
had
is
to
for
look
us,
into
too.
the eyes.
I thank the chairman.
Gentleman's time has expired.
No, I've had to look into the eyes of widows, of mothers who have lost sons. I have felt their pain. And the notion that somehow, some way, we are less than vigilant, less than strong in our determination to keep the people who put their lives on the line every day to protect the American people, that we're not doing all that we can to protect them, is inconsistent with the facts, inconsistent with the people who serve in the Department of Justice.
How dare you, sir? I am outraged by your allegations, which again have been buttressed by emails from ATF officials and agents in the Phoenix office. And again, you know, claiming that moral high ground is so important for them. Because if they have the moral high ground, then they believe the facts don't really matter. And that was, Eric Holder. Our intentions are pure. Our intentions are good. We're out there protecting law enforcement every day. Look, your intentions can be great, but if you have allowed an operation to proceed under your watch that knowingly put guns in the hands of suspected firearms traffickers, and then those guns knowingly ended up in the hands of the Mexican drug cartels, your intentions don't really matter as much as the results, do they? Again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It doesn't mean that your decisions were good. It doesn't mean that the tactical decision-making that led to Fast and Furious was correct. But we didn't mean to hurt anybody. So therefore, you can't be angry at us. Well, as I said, Attorney General Eric Holder going to be appearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee tomorrow, where he will probably get more questions from Senator Chuck Grassley about this. We'll have that for you on the program tomorrow night.